All right, hey everyone. Welcome to the July 6th meeting of the Node.js Foundation Community Committee. We have quite a few people in attendance today, which is awesome. My name is Brian Hughes. I'm Nebrius on GitHub, and I'm the Community Committee chairperson. And let's go around and have everyone introduce themselves, and let's start with Gregor.
Hey everyone, I'm Gregor. I am community manager at Cody project, and I'm looking into improving onboarding of Node.js in general.
Hey, Jen.
I'm Jen Turner, or Jen Wrights on Twitter, and RenRutNedge on GitHub, and I'm one half of the secretary persons on this committee.
Hey, Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe Seppi. I'm a developer advocate for IBM. I'm Joe_Seppi on Twitter and Joe Seppi on everywhere else pretty much. I'm on the Node.js marketing committee, but I'm looking to do more community and technical work with Node.
Hey, Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Dawson. I'm work for IBM in the runtimes team that works on delivering runtimes for IBM internal and external customer use. And I'm a collaborator and member of the TSC and CTC in the Node.js community.
Hey, Olivia.
I'm Olivia. I'm an observer. I think that's all.
And you're a pup on GitHub, right?
Oh yeah, it's me.
It helps to say who we are on GitHub, since a lot of us only know us by our handles.
Okay, fair enough.
And Richard.
Hello, I'm Richard. Rich Lit Twitter, Richard Lit, both times with 2 T's on GitHub. And I'm here as just part of the committee now, I think. Maybe still observer. Hard to tell.
Hey, Tierney.
Hi, I'm Tierney Siren. I do developer advocacy at NodeSource. I'm at BMB on GitHub and at Bit and Bang on Twitter. And I'm the other half of the secretaries for the community committee.
Hey, Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Hines, Happy-Go-Lucky online. I'm the education community manager for the Node Foundation and on the community committee.
And Will.
Hello, I am William Kepke, and that is my name on pretty much every platform. I am the one of the elected individual members that serves on the board, and so one of my roles is to take things from this committee to the board if needed.
All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our agenda. First, let's take a look at issue number 77 on the community committee repo. This is, or pull request 77, my mistake. This is to add a number of people as members. We have, I believe, 5 people in this PR, if I remember correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. So we're looking at adding Jen, Tierney, Michael Dawson, Olivia, and Richard, who we all have here in this meeting. So adding members is an actual official thing called out in the charter, and this is something that we need to vote on. This is not passed by a consensus. Now, we don't have to vote all at once in a single sitting. We don't have to reach quorum inside of this meeting. That's a specific technical thing. We do all need to vote on it. And see, currently, it looks like Tracy and William have voted yay. Is that correct? I see an approval on the PR.
Yep.
Okay, I'm voting yay as well. And
I think there was instruction further up that some people may have just thumbs up in the comment.
Yes, I see that as well. So, all right, so I actually need to cross-reference this with the list of existing members, because this is something we need members specifically to vote on. Of course, we love everyone's enthusiasm, so obviously we want everyone to weigh in. But as far as actual counting votes is concerned, we need to make sure that everyone is a member. And so we're going to have to reach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yes votes. Yeah. And so we are short of that right now. The vote wrangling process takes a while. So, this is not an indication on the actual thing being voted on. This is just how it usually goes. Okay, so Gregor, I see we have a yes from you. Thank you. Let's see. Who else in this meeting is a member? I'll just ask that. That might be everyone. All right, so actually, yes, it looks like we are going to need to take this offline and continue wrangling votes there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we've got a number of the people we're trying to vote in attending today, which is awesome. But the existing members, we also, this reminds me, not to tangent, but that I think we have 1 or 2 people on the list of members that was from when this was kicked off in charter as support, who have not attended any of the meetings. So I think we also need to look at finally trimming, because I think we're at the 3-month mark.
Oh, so this raises an interesting question. This is one I'm actually not sure what the answer to is. So we have this 3-month mark, or this 3-month limit in our charter, where if you don't participate at all within 3 months, then you're automatically basically like downgraded to an observer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question that I have and that I'm uncertain of is, does that take effect? Like, when did that take effect? Because that part of the charter was actually landed really recently. I think 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So it's specifically not retroactive. So it's only.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
When the board approved it.
Okay.
Okay. I thought that'd probably be the case. Thanks for clarifying. So we will also have to wait a little while. Now we can also reach out to some individuals just privately and just ask if they would be interested, if they're still interested in continuing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Regardless, we can always ask. Obviously, that is non-binding. Okay, I'll take that on as an action item to reach out to some of the folks who have not. I'll look through and see who has not attended any meetings and just ask if they're still interested in being a member.
And then I can just comment in the PR the other voting members that we need to participate. If that's the case.
Right. If you want to speed this up, you can also reach out to the people that just didn't show up. I think if they agree to be removed, then it should be fine.
Yep, and also just to clarify, people come and go for all sorts of reasons. The fact that they're not involved is not like a judgment on them. This is just this is a totally normal thing that happens. I realize this is a new committee, so we haven't really dealt with people leaving yet. But just like like other committees, this is totally just a natural part of the process. All right, so we have the action items from this to reach out to some people who have not been active, see if they're interested in still being active, and also to reach out to the individual members and just try and get them to vote.
Could I also add an action item of thanking those who want to step down for their service and being in the committee? I know that it's a natural part, but having a formal recognition of time having spent on the committee is really nice. Just to like bookends people deciding that they don't want to be on it anymore, and just, that's also going forward. If that makes sense.
Yeah. We kind of did something like that for the inclusivity working group. Now that I think about it, we had the list of members in the README, and I don't remember where it was, but in one of the documents, we actually had a list of when everyone was added as a member, even if they would no longer work. So there was a bit of recognition there of like past members. I don't know, what does everyone think about that? Is that something you might be interested in having? We could talk about it later too. We don't have to talk about it right now. All right, any other thoughts on this topic before we move to the next one? All right, I'm going to go a little bit out of order, if that's all right with everyone. And we're going to talk about, so Node.js TSC pull request number 276. The reason for doing this is number 278, our other agenda item, is very open-ended. And I could definitely see it taking up the rest of the available time. And I want to spend as much time on it as we can, but I just want to make sure we get to 276 as well. Is that okay with everyone? All right, so number 276, this is a pull request on the TSC repo. It is updates to the moderation policy. It's actually a pretty substantial update. Has everyone had a chance to look at it yet, or are you hearing about this for the first time? All right, so I'll go and give just a quick overview of what is in this PR. So this PR affects both the TSC and us. It makes a number of changes. So currently the way moderation is done in the Node.js community is we have a repository called the moderation repository. I believe everyone here should have access to it. If you have access to any part of the org, you'll have access to this repo. And within this repo,
I'm not the org.
No, interesting. I thought you were.
I completely left the org. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is one of the problems that I ran into, Brian, when I discovered the problem with not having org owner access, was that I can't even invite people back into the org and into our as member for the member list in CommComm.
Right. Yeah, we do need to get that squared away. So there's an issue open in the TSC to get me access. I'll push on that. Okay, so let's add an action item for me, is to follow up on getting org access for me so that we can kind of start looking.
Yeah, and if in the interim you need me to add some people, just let me know.
Okay.
Cool.
Can you go and add Olivia at PUP, PUP?
Okay. And that's just to the org itself, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then once we have that, I can, or if you want, go and also add to the community committee team.
Okay. So let's see. Right. So teams request. Just trying to remember what I do to do that, but yeah, I'll do that in parallel.
Cool. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah,
so we have this private moderation repo, and the idea with this is we're trying to empower all the collaborators to participate in moderation. So if anyone sees something going on, a thread that either is going off the rails or is at risk of going off the rails, we'll open an issue in this private repository and basically say, we should check out either this issue, this pull request, this user, and we'll use that to have internal discussions about how we want to handle that. And it's proven really effective, actually. We kind of stumbled on it a bit accidentally. There's a whole bunch of history there, but it's worked very, very well at de-escalating situations. Because this isn't public, there's a lot less of a shaming aspect to it, and it allows us to really just kind of talk about how we can, lower tensions and things like that. However, it does have some limitations still. The biggest limitation we have is there is no escalation policy. So for example, if two collaborators disagree on something, or especially if they're upset at each other and we can't come to a resolution, we currently don't have a way of working through that. So this pull request addresses that issue. And primarily, or that's one of the big impetus for opening this, is it now has an escalation policy in it. We're still working on the details. Now, another thing that this pull request does, and this is where it really affects us, is that it changes ownership of moderation from being the TSC only to having joint ownership between CommComm and the TSC. So that means that this will become part of our responsibility. So this is something that we need sign off from CommComm as well on. So I definitely strongly urge everyone to go take a look at it, read through all of the details on it, and give your feedback. Anything that you think is lacking, something that needs to be clarified, or something that you don't think will work well. We definitely want to get all of that input together. And if anyone's not comfortable posting directly to that PR, you can also talk to me or some of the others, and we can post on your behalf. But I do think that this is really, really important. And I really want to make sure that we get this right.
So looking over, looking over it temporarily, is I see moderation team. What is the moderation team? It seems like there's a lot of context there. I'm not sure. Thank you. I'm not sure what that context is on what the moderation team is and where that would fall. Where that would what that would be under.
That's actually a really good question. I think that's part of this that is still pretty vague, to be honest. We're not exactly sure. It would, what I would guess that it'll be a team, not a working group, I think. And that will somehow be jointly owned by the TSC and CommComm. I'm not exactly sure how that works though. There's a lot of mechanics that I think need to be fleshed out.
Okay.
So yeah, those would actually be great comments to leave in the PR. And if you have any thoughts on that too, of how that should look, and if anyone else has any thoughts on, what we think would be the most effective way to represent that.
Yeah, because it's definitely clear that the scope has to change. The current scope made sense in the past, but it was just leaving out some important areas. So
what's our discussion point for the CommComm for this?
So where we are right now, I want everyone just to take a look at it, give feedback. That's what we need to be doing. That's our first step that we need to take. Now, once we seem to have a consensus going, then I think this may require a vote. I'm actually not certain on that. It'll depend on it if it touches our charter and or the TSC's charter. Then that will definitely require a vote and board approval. It may not. It depends on exactly how this ends up being constructed, but there will probably be a vote at some point in time. So that's something to be prepared for. So everyone will request that you be informed on this and be able to cast an informed vote. Are there any other questions around this? Any initial thoughts? Even without looking at the PR, are there any things that you think are really important that we should address that you want to talk about right now? We don't have to talk about it right now, of course. All right, so with that, I think we'll go and head on to the next item. Like I said, there was more of a heads up and just sort of an ask. So an action item for everyone coming out of this is to go review that PR. And hopefully once we're a lot closer, then we can have a more formal discussion. Maybe we can even have a joint meeting with the TSC to discuss it as a group. All right, so the last item on our agenda is number 278. Once again, this is an issue on the TSC repo. And so this is very much a broad meta issue, and that's basically defining candidate areas for the TSC and community committee. Michael, do you want to talk about this one since you've been?
Sure. I just I've been thinking it would be nice if we as a community somehow sort of tracked all the things that were important to the success, and then at least did whatever was appropriate to make sure we're comfortable that the right things are happening in those different areas. And I think a bunch of that's happening already. It's just a matter of sort of making sure that as the TSC or CommComm committee, who are sort of the ones directly under the board, we make sure that we've got coverage across the board, and things just don't kind of slip through the cracks. So I put this issue together as kind of my first cut at here are the different areas that we might consider as key things that we should maybe periodically just review and say, hey, for example, how's our testing going? Do we think that pretty much everything we have in place is doing the job, or there's some major gaps that maybe we want to evangelize in terms of asking people to help out, or go to the board to get money to get new hardware if we need to make that happen, or just whatever. And I think these span the both the CommComm and the TSC, because they're just whatever is important to the community and Node's success, and I think that covers both things. So I guess I'm looking at for feedback on, are there things that are missing here? And then, that, yeah, we think it's a good idea, and ideas how we would actually make that happen. People have pointed out it's an open source community, so it's not like a regular organization where we can assign people responsibility or anything like that. We got to look for volunteers and see if we can fill the gaps. But so just, basically that's the idea, and then looking for people to think about it, comment, see if there's gaps, or suggest ways to move forward.
Yeah, Michael, something that came up for me and wanting to ask you all something earlier about this was that I would really love for there to be a repo where we can all, like when there is cross coordination required, where we can have one issue, where we can cross reference. So instead of something sitting like in the TSC, even though it is like equal, like there's a difference between, you know, the TSC needing to do something and wants some input from CommComm, or, you know, CommComm needing to do something and want TSC, but there are times where like we need to do things together, such as this travel fund discussion, that absolutely is going to be, it's sort of like the all hands of leadership for the project at this point. And it would be really useful to have a repo, I think, for that. And I'm happy to comment that as well in the issue. But yeah, like that's going to be a problem moving forward for coordination, is that I know for sure via the board that the travel fund has to be a joint travel fund. And for us to have that in two separate places is going to be a headache and likely cause us error.
The travel funding was also the part that isn't quite clear to me.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
The travel funds?
Yeah,
like,
so
I guess like community enablement, this is where I see the community committee involvement, right? And then the travel funding is something that I would like to have some more clarification on what we will, how our involvement in that will be and what it is at all.
Yeah, so in the last meeting, we talked about having a community committee travel fund similar to that of the TSC. So there is already a travel fund that exists that is overseen by the technical steering committee. And it is for those who are individual members of the Node Foundation. But the travel was generally for purposes that like empowered members of the TSC, right? So through Collab Summit or attending TC39 meetings, things like that. So last community committee meeting, we had approved going to the board to request that we could do a travel fund, because that's something the board has to approve, as well as providing money so that the community committee could also have a travel fund. And what the board came back with, which is very reasonable, is that they would prefer for us to take these the ideas of these separate travel funds and have one travel fund that covers everyone and is not just administered by the TSC, so that we need to coordinate these efforts, come back with that plan, and then they would be happy to move forward. So that was not approved this past month in the board meeting because they would prefer the coordination of teams together as one voice coming to them for that.
Are you reading next week? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So that was a very good question.
Shall we add this to the issue, or is it like too much detail for this one?
I did it last week.
I have that in the travel fund issue that I updated, but I'm actually for the sorry, we have a community committee travel fund issue open, and I updated it with that information in much shorter form. But it was mostly that we can't really do anything travel fund wise until the two coordinate. And that's the big problem for me, is that we need to get these travel funds ready to go. We can't get that money approved until we work together. So like for me, I actually went to go look for an issue, Michael Dawson, on that. And it looks like that one was not created separately. And I didn't want to muck up this candidate areas issue. So should I just file a new one? And then in that case, I have to file in one of the repo, like I'll likely file in the TSC repo and then need to call it back to the community committee.
Right. Yeah, you mean like a common one, you mean?
Right, yeah. So that was just one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to file an issue in the TSC repo for this because we need to do this. But ultimately, we're going to have to be working in a repo that we both own. So this is going to be more new territory because we both should have jurisdiction, right?
Yeah.
in some repo.
Yeah, and then I guess it gets even more complicated if like the voting is one vote for each, and then but there's digital access, and yeah, messy.
Yep, could be.
So
and we have twice as many. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there's actually discussion about this going on in the moderation PR specifically. Now that's much more focused, but there's a discussion going on. Yeah, how do we vote on this stuff? Especially since like updating the moderation policy rule. I think the way it's written right now would require a vote. There's discussion on whether or not a vote should be required, but there's also discussion of how does that work. So there was the idea of creating sort of like a super committee where just like all the individuals sort of come together and vote as a single group. There's also the idea that each committee would vote independently, and it's required to pass in both committees. As far as like simple majority of each separately, which is a little bit different. Like the numbers are going to be a little different on how that plays out. So those are all things to just kind of think about, like how we're going to have to work with that. Now, another thing I remember is there is a repo we could resurrect. It's called the collaboration repo. It's github.com/node.js/collaboration. Actually, here, I'll drop it in the chat. This was originally created for a similar purpose, but at a lower level. It was created to help facilitate between working groups. It ended up not being, or it ended up being unnecessary because I think those discussions ended up just happening in the CTC as the CTC got more established. So a very old idea, but it might be worthwhile to resurrect that, but instead for facilitating collaboration between CommComm and TSC. A thought?
Yeah, I guess it'll be interesting on what kind of things will be shared. Like if they're all administration kind of things, might make sense to be more of like an administration repo, but I don't know. If it's going to be all sorts of different things, then you're right, a more generic just...
Well, and that also goes back to, we discussed a couple of times creating an admin, either team or working group, and I think a lot of people had expressed, maybe this should be shared between the two committees.
Right.
So that could also be a place.
Yeah.
Okay, so based on this discussion, it sounds like we should probably open an issue for now, either in CommComm or the TSC repo about creating a place for us to collaborate between the two, like to get this question solved first or answered first, and then we can start using that to actually collaborate. We can even use the travel fund as sort of like the pilot issue of whatever we decide.
I don't think Tracy wants to wait for that, right? Because we want to make sure that it's in place in time.
Yeah, see, this is one of the things that we're struggling with, right, is that the travel fund, this is kind of an all hands at this point, like in terms of fires. And it's not a fire so much as we really need to have this done by the next board meeting, like a week before the board meeting. So we have essentially 2 weeks, because otherwise it is another entire month before we can get that approved, and that's more time that our collaborators are unsure whether they're going to get assistance to travel to Node Interactive.
Yeah, I would suggest just an issue in the TSC, just because that's where the collaborator fund has been before.
Yeah, because right now, otherwise, it's just PRs for us on the CommComm side.
So earlier, there was some discussion about a joint meeting. I think that might also be, like, we could try to plan that either after the next TSC meeting, which would be a week from today, which is about what you're suggesting on the timeline, or something else, like a joint meeting, because it seems that's come up twice now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I wonder if that would be enough time.
Yeah, it's tough because this is, we would have to get this done in like a week.
But is it, I mean, so the steps are, you need to create the issue that says we basically want to expand the existing travel fund to cover CommComm as well, right? And add new amounts, which I think you already have the amounts for both sides, right?
Well, so what's interesting about what is currently written for the TSC Travel Fund, though I don't think it was how it was executed, is that the TSC Travel Fund covers all individual members of the Node Foundation. It is not TSC members. It is not collaborators or contributors. It is individual members.
Right.
So, and I know that I think James had brought that up. And so that's easy enough for me to be able from an administrative perspective, because I have to, that's a private list for the sake of our members, because we don't like that to be, I know that that's an interesting list, but we try to protect privacy. So I need to figure out a way for some people to be able to have access to that from an admin perspective, other than myself. But that in itself is fine. I think it's actually that people from CommComm should be the expansion of who's adminning that travel fund, so that it's not solely the responsibility of the TSC.
Right.
So like as it's written, it's actually fine under the TSC for who it's going to.
Right. Does that require a change by the, like, what is it that you need to get to the board?
That's exactly. So that's, yeah, now that I'm talking this out, we need to PR that existing travel fund, but it would likely need to be pulled out under the TSC repo. So the writing, the document is good. It just needs to be changed from the scope of the TSC to adding CommComm and with the TSC. And then of course, we probably want to be more explicit about how that money is being, like approval of funds, and then how it, like reimbursement works, just because that's usually me having to walk people through that, because it's not super clear.
Yeah, definitely writing those down would be good.
Yeah, it'd be great, because I just, it's tough for people to be trusting that that money will magically appear in their account again at some point. That's just stressful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to be clear on kind of like next steps, things like this, the fund itself is good. What we need to update is like how it's administered and who's in charge of approvals. Or at least to make it a little more explicit that, this covers all individual members, which includes people who are in teams and working groups under CommComm, and not just teams and working groups under the TSC.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
the fund actually already states that though. So it's more of a messaging.
And I'd almost, like, would it be suitable to say that travel approval can be done by either the CommComm or the TSC?
Yeah, I think that it's fine to say, like, try and keep it relevant to the parties that you're most participating in. Like, if you're in both committees, then, like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be, like, chiming in on TSC members requesting, right? Actually, no, that doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I just negated myself because it's individual members, not TSC or, yeah.
Right. I was more like, rather than trying to make a combined vote and figure out how you vote, I think in this case, I could see it being that, a vote of either of the groups saying yes would be enough.
Yep. And it's now the existing TSC travel fund, it is the responsibility of the person requesting the fund to file a PR that updates that sort of spread the table for the year, right, of the cost. Yeah, so that's nice, because then it ends up being the way that we can account for it. So that's part of needing the joint repo, so that we just have that in one place. But yeah, I think that's great. Like, unless, either group can object, but otherwise it's, trusting that people are doing the relevant work and it gets approved.
Yeah, I don't even, I was just thinking that, the decision of either one, as long as there's funds, could be enough, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, sorry, I was just talking about the decision-making, the lazy consent, or the, yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, even if you say that, say the TSC can object to what the CommComm group has decided, then you've got to have how do you resolve that, right?
Right.
So if you just said either one can make, can say yes, I don't, that can fly. That's probably the simplest.
Right. Yeah, because I don't think that's, I'd rather not get bogged down in process of things that hasn't occurred yet, because I don't think that there's been much problem with that on the TSC side at all for request of funds.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so we'll definitely, would you, so should I know that I've been doing these requests for the allocations so should I PR the TSC
I think that would make sense if you could PR,
Yeah.
because like you'd already been looking at the numbers, right? So if you have the numbers to say, you know, we need to increase the fund by these two numbers because, you know, one is, well, I think we wanted to increase it for the TSC, but then also increase it for the CommComm. So, you know, PR for those two numbers, and then I guess the other part is the PR to the change for the governance, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the other. So, because I can't like PR a new repo, so that just has to be an issue filed, right?
Yeah, I would say that could, you know, I'd almost treat that separately to say, and as a separate issue, really, this shouldn't just be in the TSC repo, it should be in a shared repo.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so I'll do both of those. Open an issue for new joint repo, or use or repurpose the collaboration. I kind of would like that, the
And
collaborator
repo. For the short term, trying to get something in front of the board, it's probably, you know, easier to leave that part out and just have the. If it
yeah, I'm happy to bike shed that later.
Yeah.
As long as people are folks, you know, providing input, which I don't. Again, I don't think that'll be a problem. Cool. All right, I've got that down. Yeah, because I agree, Michael. It's much more important for us to get that travel fund coordination between our two groups done first. I think trusting that we can open a new repo with joint scope soon
right.
is great, but not necessary to us getting this joint travel fund through.
Yeah, that should just be agreeing on what it is and what it should be named. And
let's get all our people together.
Yep. That's right.
Okay.
I wonder, do you all plan to come to Node Interactive?
What was that? What'd you ask?
I just wonder, like, if everyone plans to come to Node Interactive. It would be nice to meet you all in person. And I haven't been myself yet, but that would be a good reason for me to come.
I'll be there.
I'll be going.
Yeah, I definitely encourage everyone to go. I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'm planning to be there.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to go, and if we can get this travel fund approved, it would at least cover everyone getting to Collaboration Summit, which is at the tail end of Node Interactive. So that would cover travel and hotel for that time.
It's at the end, not at the beginning?
It is at the end.
Okay.
Is that during the weekend then?
It is a Friday, Saturday.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna be like that's the first week of my first university semester, so I'm thinking that'll be tight, if anything.
No.
Yeah, we'll see.
No.
I'm debating whether I should just come for the Collab Summit. I probably wouldn't come to Node Interactive, but I might come for this. But I've also flown a ton this year, and I'm trying to keep miles down because the environment. So
yeah, Mother Nature. I'm gonna have to walk for the rest of my life after these couple of years.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I dropped a link in the chat. This goes to the Summit repository. There's the issue I linked to specifically for this Collab Summit. So there's like some organizing stuff going on in there, but it's also a place where you can just kind of indicate that you're interested. And I think we might have some more information on. Actually, no, it looks like we don't have information on how to request funds, but I'll make sure to add that.
Yeah, and we should, yeah, everyone in the committee should be watching that, not literally watching the repo, but it's great to give input for the summit. It's a really good time for us to all get to engage, and if you plan stuff ahead of time and let them know that we're going to be talking about things, people get really excited. We had really good engagement at the May Collaborators Summit, even considering how small it was, so.
All right, so getting this back a little bit broader, so this issue is candidate areas. So kind of going back to that issue number 278. So this is another thing I recommend everyone take a look at. We don't, we're kind of running out of time, so we won't discuss it here. in detail. But the idea is that the Node.js project, there's a whole bunch of moving pieces and parts to it. There's like a whole bunch of things that need to happen in order for Node to ship. And we want to make sure that we're aware of what those areas are, and that we kind of have eyes on them. The idea is that this should help prevent things from falling through the cracks, which in open source is easy. It's easier to happen in open source than it is in a company because, as was mentioned earlier, we can't hire people to fill roles or assign people to projects. And this candidate areas is not just technical. Like technical is definitely a part of it, but evangelism and things like that, and our activities also fall into it. So yeah, let's just give it a thought. If there's anything that you think even just might be a possible candidate area, definitely drop it in. And let's think of this as like brainstorming, because we want to get as much coverage as we can over what the project actually is.
Can you define what a candidate area is?
Just something that we think the Node project should be doing, is how I would define it. It's something that we think fits within the scope of the Node.js Foundation, that's a very broad scope.
Okay, cool.
And
so like what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Okay. So what we're looking for in this issue is we're looking to find more of these candidate areas, right? Not like assign them or anything.
Yeah, like in the perfect world, we'd end up with a full list of all the things we think are important, and somebody who's kind of like taking ownership of making sure the right things happen. I don't think we'll end up assigning, we can't necessarily assign them all out or anything like that, but I think it's good to have the list at least to think about.
Yeah.
And I think we want to think about, well, which ones kind of fit under the community committee, because those are ones that, this group may want to say, okay, now, here's the list of things, and are we doing all the right things that we think should be happening in that list? It's kind of like the checklist that we can use as a periodic thing to review to say, hey, is anything being missed that we want to be doing?
Okay, makes sense.
Org, I think this is something that Richard had brought up in the Collab Summit, was the not that we don't want it to be like a grab bag of like who gets to tell what to do, but more of a who we can point people to when they need to ask questions.
Yeah, you're right. It's not about ownership in terms of like direction and deciding what happens. It's more of a exactly what you just said. If somebody wants to find out about what's going on in education, who would be the natural person that we would point them at? Or if somebody wants to do some sort of education and it's a great idea, but they need some help to get the foundation behind that or lined up again, like who or how would they do that, and how do we make sure that the support is there?
And another thing I had mentioned in the last TSE meeting on this topic is this is also information that could be useful for the board to know, because we can say like, these are the areas that we currently have gaps in, and the board could then take a look and decide, is this something that's really important and we need to get done? And since we can't find people, do we need to look at other ways of making sure that work gets done? Which could maybe include like funding and various things of that nature.
Yeah, I think there's a whole spectrum. So that's sort of like the hard, if there's funding, before that, there could be like going out to the community. Even the board could go back and ask the people who are like the corporate members to say, hey, this is a gap. Do you guys have anywhere they can help? Or we can like evangelize it by saying, hey, we really could use somebody's help in this area. Like, I think just making sure that it's like, if people are looking to help out some way and there's something we think is the most important, that awareness could help direct the effort in the right place.
So right now, it would make sense to more specifically define what the points on that list actually mean, right? They're kind of defining the roles before we actually reach out to people to ask them to fill in these roles. Because right now, I think it's more like, like areas we are interested in, but I think we have to do some homework at least for the parts relevant for the community committee, to fill in with like what does it actually mean, because otherwise it will be very hard to find people to take on these positions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is just sort of the top level headlines. You're right that really, we should have a deeper understanding and description of, well, what are all the things we want to be doing under these things? Like some are obvious, like, and maybe even, not totally, but like travel funding. We were talking about that one fund to fund travel and the mandate for that. If that's the only thing, then it's a matter of documenting that. If there's something else, though, then maybe, there's even deserves some thought there. Some of the others are much fuzzier and bigger, though, so I agree. They need a lot more refinement before you'd actually say, hey, can you come help with this, right?
So can I put, like, contributor onboarding on it? Basically across our working groups? And
yeah, I think that fits in, like, that ought to fit in somewhere here. That, one of the things we want to make sure is that we do that effectively and we continue to get people onboarded easily and quickly, that kind of stuff.
And I would say if you're not certain if it fits or not, just go and mention it anyways. We can always have a discussion on whether or not it fits, but I'd rather have that discussion and decide, that maybe this doesn't fit on the list than to not have the discussion and it actually doesn't need to be on the list. So yeah, I think we like brainstorming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. The more the better. It's easier. It's easy to sort of prioritize once you have a full list, but if you've missed it, then you've just missed it.
Okay. I gotta go in 5 minutes.
And is there anything else on this topic? Any other questions, thoughts, ideas?
Actually, I did submit one or a couple too as we were talking. But one of the things I am kind of wanting to push on more now is updating the website. There was an initiative started a year and a half or a year ago, and
yeah.
that's I asked a little while ago, and again, there had been no kind of updates because they were the person having to do it was working on a thing for work, and they had to push that over, and it's been going on for a while now. So I wanted to see if there's kind of what we can do to kind of get a new website thing going. And of course, that would have to involve the website working group and whatever that entire process. But I know Michael was the point of contact for that kind of previous new iteration.
Yeah.
So now that Michael's gone, I'm a bit worried about that and that just completely stagnating.
Well, my understanding was that Michael was not leading the charge on that, but was unfortunately, yes, the person who held a lot of the context. Because I think that the people from the website working group and anyone from that group who's listening or gets these notes can correct me. But it was my understanding that a lot of the people who were spearheading that have kind of like dropped away a little bit. And there's not the same amount of energy moving forward. And I was actually, that's one of the things I had talked about last year when I came on, was from an education perspective, our website does not cut it. And there needs to be a massive redo, but I was told, well, we can't even think about another massive redo until the one that was last in place. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's the right way for us to be looking at it anymore, just from the amount of time, Tierney, that you brought up that it's been worked on.
That makes sense.
So, and I know that there's been board members, many board members have expressed that they would love to see, and that's like, that's the last straw, sort of, because I know that there's plenty of the website working group people who would love to see a completely revamped website, but there's just not enough hands.
I've also talked to many individual people who haven't really gotten involved in the project, but they saw that as a way to, like, they would love to get involved with that, and like that's how I myself got involved with Node.js and everything I'm doing. So like I have a passion for those people and enabling them to go do that, and it keeps. That repo is kind of the fallback that we're waiting for this, and it seems like we can't keep waiting for it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy. I think they actually did finally release that big project today.
Oh, cool.
So
nice.
hopefully there's more context there that we can kind of follow up on. But I am worried with Michael being gone that kind of our point of contact is also gone, and so we'd have to kind of develop that out more.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
There has been. Sorry. Go ahead.
Wait, who's talking? I think that there is sort of right now in this whole thing a big bottleneck where I think the main point was the initial design, and I think once that's done, we can take steps to ensure that everything moves kind of smoothly, because we can actually do development and set up some open source thing or whatever. But yeah, the design is probably going to be handled by only one person, which kind of sucks.
Wait, so the design from 1.5 years ago is still being iterated on?
I don't know if it started. I don't know if it was started. That's the thing.
There were some initial screenshots, but I think that was all.
Yeah. And so Tracy, this is something where we could go allocate funds from the foundation to do this. That seems like a reasonable thing, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, this is the sort of thing where the foundation helps, but part of that would mean a call, right? It ends up being for a request for submissions, right? Because then you are paying someone to work on that to get it done in a much shorter time frame. Unfortunately, allowing the project to grow in a reasonable amount of time for the different hours that people have to contribute, and also that maybe we don't have designers, a lot of designers who work on the project, so it's not necessarily our strong suit right now. But yeah, I mean, if we need to, I'm sure that there are many website working group issues on this. But if we need to rally a new one and say, at what point, at what time frame do we need to work on something new,
Yeah.
Right, you need a cat herder and somebody to set goals, and right now. So
okay, that sounds good.
I'm happy to, if there's a smaller group of people that would like to talk offline or an issue to point me to for us to move forward with that journey, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
All right, so with that, we're right at time. So let's go ahead and move on to the Q&A. See, looking at that, we have one question from Max SSH saying, "Hi, what do you think about PM2?" So I don't know if this is necessarily the best group to really answer that question. I can say personally, I used it for a long time, but I've moved away from it in favor of just doing straight up systemd services. So, if anyone else has any thoughts on PM2.
I also go for systemd and Docker orchestration stuff as well.
What was the question about PM2?
Just what we think about PM2.
Oh, I mean, do we know anybody, and do we have anyone we can point to within the project that might be good to ask that question, since we aren't really knowledgeable with PM2?
Not really sure. I'm not sure if any of the PM2 maintainers are really involved in the Node project.
Okay, yeah. I was just trying to think if maybe that would be a better.
I mean, we can tweet it, and then they can follow our tweets. I don't know how else to reach people. Good question, though. I like it.
Yeah.
Energy.
All right, with that, let's go and call it a meeting. Thanks, everyone, for joining in, and we'll see you again on July 20th for the next meeting.
Whee! Bye, y'all.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.